The Deception unveiled commander, Elena Vasquez, stood quietly at the edge of the massive circular chamber that housed the Galactic Council. The room stretched upward for nearly a kilometer, its crystalline walls reflecting the light from 1,000 different suns that shone through transparent sections of the dome. Representatives from 47 different species filled the floating platforms that orbited the central speaking area, their various forms creating a rainbow of alien life. That would have amazed any human seeing it for the first time. But Elena was not impressed. She had been Earth's representative to the Council for 8 years now, and in that time she had watched these same beings treat humanity like unwanted children at a family gathering. Today would be different, though she doubted any of them realized it yet. The current speaker was Counselor Zethkar, a towering reptilian being whose scales shifted from deep green to angry red as he gestured with his 4 arms. His species, the Drakmori, controlled 12 star systems and considered themselves among the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Like most council members, he viewed humans as barely evolved primitives who had somehow stumbled into space. Travel. The matter before us today, Zethkar hissed, his translator converting his words into the common galactic language, is whether the human species deserves to maintain its current status within our council. Recent reports from their home system show continued use of chemical propulsion, primitive nuclear reactors, and what can only be described as laughably basic defensive systems. Elena remained perfectly still, her hands clasped behind her back, as she listened to the familiar litany of human shortcomings. She wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, which looked almost childish compared to the elaborate robes and energy-filled clothing worn by other representatives. This was entirely intentional. Ambassador Lyra, whose ethereal form seemed to be made of living starlight, spoke next from her floating platform. While I do not share Counselor Zethkar's harsh tone, I must admit concern about humanity's military capabilities. The recent Void Hunter incursions near the Outer Rim have shown us all how dangerous this galaxy can be. Species that cannot defend themselves often become targets for forces that threaten us all. The mention of the Void Hunters sent a ripple of fear through the chamber. These ancient beings had appeared from the dark spaces between galaxies 50 years ago, attacking without warning and consuming entire worlds. Their technology was beyond anything the Council species possessed, and their ships could appear anywhere without detection. Dozens of worlds had fallen before their advance, and the Council's combined fleets had proven helpless to stop them. Counselor Vrex, whose crystalline body chimed like wind chimes as he moved, added his voice to the discussion. The humans have contributed nothing to our defense against the Void Hunters. Their primitive weapons and outdated ships would be useless in any real conflict. Perhaps it is time to relocate their population to protected worlds and strip their voting rights. Elena finally stepped forward into the central speaking area. The chamber fell silent as all eyes turned to the human representative. She was small, compared to most of the beings present, standing barely 1.7 meters tall, but something in her posture commanded attention. "Honored counselors," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems, "I have listened to your concerns about humanity's capabilities with great interest. For 8 years, I have sat in this chamber while you debated our worthiness, questioned our technology, and suggested that we are too primitive to deserve a place among you." She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the assembled representatives. "Today, I think it is time to correct some misconceptions you have about my species." Zethkar's scales flashed an amused yellow. "Are you going to tell us about some new human invention? Perhaps you have finally discovered energy shields, or faster-than-light communication?" Elena smiled, and there was something in that expression that made several counselors shift uncomfortably on their platforms. "Actually, Counselor, I am going to tell you about something we built 73 years ago, something we have kept hidden, while you assumed we were too backward to pose a threat to anyone. She activated a small device on her wrist, and suddenly the chamber's central display showed an image that made every being present gasp in shock. Floating in the darkness of space was a structure so massive it defied comprehension. It appeared to be an asteroid at first glance, roughly spherical and covered in the kind of rocky surface one might expect from a wandering space rock. But as the image zoomed in, details became visible that revealed the truth. The asteroid was artificial. Its surface was covered with weapons emplacements, docking bays, and sensor arrays that had been camouflaged to look like natural rock formations. The structure was at least 15 kilometers in diameter, making it larger than most space stations built by any council species. And it was clearly human in origin, based on the design elements visible in its construction. "This is Haven's shield," Elena announced, her voice echoing in the stunned silence of the chamber. "It is one of 6 similar installations that my species has built and maintained throughout the galaxy over the past 7 decades. Each one is fully operational, staffed by over 50,000 personnel, and equipped with defensive systems that would surprise you." Counselor Vrex's crystalline form had stopped chiming entirely, a sign of deep shock among his species. "This is impossible. Our sensors would have detected such constructions. Our intelligence networks would have reported human military activity on this scale." Helena's smile widened. "Your sensors did detect them, Counselor. You have detailed records of 6 large asteroids that have appeared in various systems over the years. Your scientists studied them, classified them as naturally occurring space rocks, and promptly forgot about them. That was exactly what we intended." She gestured to the display, which now showed technical specifications that made several counselors lean forward in disbelief. The weapon systems alone represented technology that surpassed anything in the Council's arsenals. Energy cannons that could punch through any known shielding, missile systems with targeting computers that could track and destroy targets across multiple star systems, and defensive screens that seemed to bend the laws of physics. "How?" "Ambassador," Lyra asked, her starlight form flickering with confusion. "Our intelligence indicates that your species has barely begun to understand energy manipulation. Your ships still use primitive fusion reactors." "The ships you have seen use primitive fusion reactors," Helena corrected. "The ones we wanted you to see. We learned long ago that being underestimated is often the greatest advantage a species can have. While you assumed we were struggling with basic technology, our best scientists were developing systems that your people declared impossible." She touched her wrist device again, and the display changed to show a new image. This one depicted a vast chamber inside Haven's shield, where hundreds of sleek fighters hung in launch bays. The craft were clearly human in design, but they incorporated technology that looked decades ahead of anything Earth had publicly revealed. "These are our Phantom-class interceptors," Elena explained. "Each one is equipped with adaptive camouflage systems, quantum computers for targeting and navigation, and weapons that can be reconfigured in real time to counter any threat they encounter. We currently have over 12,000 of them distributed across our 6 installations." The chamber erupted in shocked voices as counselors began talking at once. Some demanded to know why humanity had hidden such capabilities, while others questioned whether the technology was real or some elaborate deception. Elena waited patiently for the noise to die down before continuing. "I know what you are thinking," she said once quiet returned. "You want to know why we kept this secret. You are wondering if we have been planning some kind of attack on Council worlds, or if we have been laughing at you while you treated us like children." She shook her head slowly. "The truth is much simpler than that. We built these installations for one purpose: to protect this galaxy from threats that your combined fleets could not handle. We have been the silent guardians of civilized space for over 70 years, and most of you never knew we were there. Asterisk Zethkar's scales had shifted to a deep purple, indicating extreme agitation among his species. You expect us to believe that humans have been protecting us? That your primitive species has been defending advanced civilizations like ours? Asterisk Elena's expression grew serious. I expect you to examine your own records, Counselor. Look at the data from every Void Hunter attack over the past 50 years. Study the patterns, analyze the timing, and ask yourself why certain systems were spared when others fell. She gestured to the display again, which now showed a star map covering the past 5 decades. Red dots marked worlds that had been attacked by Void Hunters, while green dots showed successful defenses. The pattern was clear to anyone who looked closely. The green dots formed protective zones around major council worlds and trade routes. Every green dot on this map represents a battle where human forces intervened to stop Void Hunter attacks. Elena continued. We have fought over 200 engagements against their forces, using our hidden installations as bases of operation. Our ships have died protecting your worlds, and our crews have sacrificed their lives to ensure that civilized species could continue to thrive. The chamber fell completely silent as the implications of Elena's words sank in. Several counselors were frantically accessing their own databases, checking the records of Void Hunter encounters and finding patterns they had never noticed before. The truth was there in their own files, if they had known what to look for. Doctor. Sarah Mitchell, who had been standing quietly beside Elena throughout the presentation, stepped forward. She was a small woman with prematurely gray hair and the kind of intense focus that marked humanity's greatest scientists. The Void Hunters use quantum-phased energy that makes their ships nearly impossible to detect until they begin attacking. She explained. Traditional sensors cannot track them, and conventional weapons cannot penetrate their hulls. She activated her own wrist device, adding new technical data to the display. Human scientists developed adaptive defense systems that can analyze Void Hunter technology in real time and modify our weapons to counter their specific advantages. It took us 40 years to perfect the process, but we can now detect their ships before they attack and engage them with weapons that can actually cause damage. Ambassador Lyra's form brightened with understanding. The mysterious energy signatures our scientists have detected after Void Hunter retreats. We thought they were some kind of weapon discharge from the attackers themselves. Those were our weapons, Dr. Mitchell confirmed. We have been very careful to clean up after our battles, removing any evidence that might reveal our involvement. We wanted the Void Hunters to believe they were facing natural phenomena or random equipment failures, not a coordinated defense network. Elena stepped back into the center of the speaking area. We did not reveal our capabilities because we knew how you would react. Some of you would have demanded access to our technology. Others would have tried to control or regulate our activities. Many would have been offended that a supposedly primitive species had developed defenses that your advanced civilizations could not create. She looked directly at Zethkar, whose scales were now shifting rapidly between different colors as he processed the revelation. We chose to work in secret because it was more effective. We could protect your worlds without triggering the political complications that would have resulted from open cooperation. The reptilian counselor finally found his voice. Your species has been defending Drakmori worlds for decades. 17 successful interventions over the past 32 years, Elena confirmed. The attack on your mining colony in the Kepler 442 system 3 months ago was stopped by a task force operating from Haven's shield. The Void Hunter fleet was destroyed before it could reach your population centers. Zethkar's scales slowly shifted to a deep blue, which Elena recognized as the color of profound respect among the Drakmori. We detected energy anomalies in that system, but our investigation teams found no evidence of a battle. Because we removed the evidence, Dr. Mitchell explained. Void Hunter technology disintegrates completely when their ships are destroyed, and we have cleanup protocols that eliminate any trace of our weapons discharge. From your perspective, it would have appeared that the attacking fleet simply vanished. The Guardian's Truth Admiral Marcus Chon stood on the command bridge of Haven's Shield, watching the real-time feed from the Galactic Council chambers on one of his wall displays. At 68 years old, he had spent more than half his life aboard this massive installation, first as a young engineer, helping with its construction, and now as its commanding officer. His weathered face showed the weight of decades spent fighting a war that most of the galaxy never knew was happening. The bridge around him buzzed with quiet activity as his crew monitored hundreds of sensor feeds from across their patrol sector. Haven's Shield was positioned in the empty space between the Council's core worlds and the galactic rim, perfectly placed to intercept any Void Hunter incursions before they could reach populated systems. The installation's exterior still looked like a massive asteroid to any casual observer, but inside it was a marvel of human engineering and determination. Admiral, called Lieutenant Commander Rachel Torres from the communications station, "We're receiving priority signals from Installations Bravo through Foxtrot. All station commanders are requesting permission to reveal their positions to the Council." Marcus nodded slowly. He had expected this moment would come eventually, though he had hoped it might be under different circumstances. For 73 years, humanity had maintained the fiction that they were a primitive species barely capable of interplanetary travel. The deception had served them well, allowing them to build their defensive network without interference from the galaxy's more established civilizations. "Signal all installations," he ordered. "Begin decloak procedures and prepare for full revelation. It's time the Council learned what we've really been doing out here." Captain Alex Rivera, who commanded Haven's Shield's fighter squadrons, looked up from his tactical display. "Sir, are we sure about this? Once we reveal ourselves, there's no going back to the old way of operating." Marcus considered the question carefully. The old way had worked for decades, but it had also required them to watch helplessly as some worlds fell to Void Hunter attacks because they couldn't reach them in time. Operating in secret meant they could only deploy limited forces and had to avoid any action that might reveal their presence. Full cooperation with the Council would mean better intelligence, faster response times, and the ability to coordinate their efforts with local defense forces. Captain Rivera, he said finally, "How many Void Hunter attacks have we failed to stop in the past year?" Alex's expression darkened. 14 successful attacks, sir. 7 worlds completely consumed, 3 partially evacuated, 4 abandoned. Total estimated casualties around 400 million beings. The number hit Marcus like a physical blow, even though he already knew it. 400 million people had died because humanity's secret war against the Void Hunters was limited by the need to remain hidden. Every life lost weighed on him personally, but they had made the decision long ago that revealing themselves prematurely would cause more harm than good. Dr. Sarah Mitchell's voice came through the bridge speakers as she continued her presentation. "To the Council, the Void Hunters are not a conventional military force as we understand the concept. They are something far older and more dangerous, remnants of a civilization that existed before the current galactic community formed. Their technology operates on principles that most species consider impossible." Marcus walked to the main tactical display, which showed the current positions of all known Void Hunter fleets throughout the galaxy. There were 37 active groups that his sensors could track, ranging in size from single scout ships to massive invasion armadas containing hundreds of vessels. Each group moved according to patterns that human analysts had spent decades learning to predict. "The key to understanding the Void Hunters," Dr. Mitchell continued, "is recognizing that they exist partially outside normal spacetime. Their ships can phase in and out of our reality, making them nearly impossible to detect until they choose to attack. Traditional weapons pass through them harmlessly because they can shift their molecular structure to avoid physical impact. The display changed to show technical readouts from Haven's Shield's weapon systems. Marcus had overseen the development of many of these systems personally, working with Dr. Mitchell and her team to create weapons that could hurt beings that barely existed in the same dimension as their targets. Human scientists approached this problem differently than other species, Dr. Mitchell explained. Instead of trying to create more powerful conventional weapons, we developed adaptive systems that could modify themselves in real time to match whatever reality state the Void Hunters were using. Marcus remembered the early days of that research, when they had lost entire research stations to failed experiments. Learning to fight an enemy that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously had required human engineers to completely reimagine the basic principles of physics and weapons design. Captain Rivera joined him at the tactical display. Admiral, we're detecting new movement in Sector 7. Looks like a Void Hunter reconnaissance force, probably scouting for their next target. Marcus studied the sensor data flowing across his screens. 3 Void Hunter ships were approaching a system that contained 2 inhabited worlds with a combined population of over 8 billion people. The approach pattern suggested they were planning a full-scale assault within the next few days. Prep Alpha Squadron for immediate deployment, he ordered. Full stealth approach, adaptive weapons load out. If we move fast, we can eliminate them before they report back to the main fleet. This was exactly the kind of operation that humanity had been conducting in secret for decades. Their fighters would intercept the Void Hunter scouts, destroy them, using weapons specifically designed to counter their reality-shifting abilities, and then remove all evidence of the battle. The inhabited worlds would never know how close they had come to complete annihilation. Alex was already coordinating with his squadron leaders when the communication board lit up with an incoming transmission from the Galactic Council chambers. Elena Vasquez appeared on the main screen, her expression serious but determined. Admiral Chun, she said, the Council is requesting a direct demonstration of our capabilities. Several members still believe this might be an elaborate deception, Marcus sighed. He had expected skepticism, especially from species that had spent decades viewing humans as primitives. What kind of demonstration do they want? Real-time tactical data from our next Void Hunter engagement, Elena replied. They want to see our systems in action against an actual threat. The timing could not have been better. Marcus gestured toward the tactical display, showing the approaching Void Hunter scouts. We have 3 hostiles moving toward the Kepler 186 system. Population approximately 8 billion, mostly Zephyrian colonies with some mixed settlements. If we don't stop them in the next 6 hours, they'll begin a full assault. Elena's eyes widened slightly as she processed the implications. The Zephyrians were one of the Council's founding species, and Kepler 186 was considered one of their most important systems. An attack there would be seen as a direct assault on the Council's authority. Patch the tactical feed directly to the Council chambers, Marcus decided. Let them watch us work. Within minutes, the Council's main display was showing real-time sensor data from Haven's Shield. The 3 Void Hunter ships appeared as ghostly contacts that flickered in and out of existence, sometimes visible to sensors and sometimes completely undetectable. Traditional targeting systems would have been useless against such enemies. Alpha Squadron launched from Haven's Shield with Captain Rivera in the lead. 12 Phantom-class fighters dropped out of the installation's hidden launch bays and immediately engaged their adaptive camouflage systems. On the Council's display, they appeared as faint energy signatures that seemed to bend light around them. Void Hunter contacts maintaining approach vector, Rivera reported over the open channel that was now being broadcast to the Council. Estimated time to populated worlds is 4 hours, 27 minutes. Beginning intercept approach. Marcus could see the confusion and concern on the faces of council members as they watched the display. Most had never seen Void Hunter ships before, since encounters typically resulted in complete destruction of any weaknesses. The alien vessels moved in ways that defied conventional understanding of space travel, sometimes appearing to be in multiple locations simultaneously. Alpha Leader, be advised that Council sensors are tracking this engagement, Marcus transmitted. Full tactical documentation is authorized. Understood, Control, Rivera replied. Beginning attack run now. The human fighters closed with their targets, using approach vectors that seemed impossible. Instead of flying directly at the enemy ships, they moved in complex spirals that took them through empty space where the Void Hunters would be rather than where they currently appeared to be. This was the key insight that had taken human tacticians decades to develop. Fighting the Void Hunters required predicting where they would exist rather than where they appeared to exist. Weapons lock acquired, Rivera reported. Firing adaptive pulse arrays. The human weapons discharged in carefully timed sequences, each pulse calibrated to match the reality state of its target at the precise moment of impact. On the Council's display, the Void Hunter ships suddenly became fully visible as the adaptive pulses forced them into normal spacetime. For the first time, Council members could see their enemies clearly. The Void Hunter vessels were unlike anything in known space. They appeared to be constructed from some kind of living metal that shifted and flowed like liquid, while maintaining the structural integrity of solid matter. Their hulls were covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly, as if they existed in too many dimensions for normal eyes to process. But the human weapons were working. Explosions rippled across the alien hulls as adaptive pulses found their targets and forced destructive energy into the same reality state as the ships themselves. The Void Hunters tried to phase back into their protected dimensional state, but the human targeting computers anticipated their movements and adjusted the weapon. Frequencies in real-time got asterisk. Multiple hits confirmed, Rivera reported. Enemy vessels are taking critical damage and unable to maintain phase coherence. The first Void Hunter ship lost structural integrity and disintegrated in a flash of energy that registered across multiple dimensional states simultaneously. The second tried to retreat, but human fighters had anticipated its escape route and were waiting with another volley of adaptive weapons. The third ship managed to return fire, launching projectiles that existed only partially in normal space. Evasive maneuvers, Rivera commanded as his squadron scattered to avoid the alien weapons. Remember your training. They can't hit what doesn't exist in their current dimensional frame. The human fighters shifted their own reality state, using technology derived from decades of studying Void Hunter remains. They became partially intangible, allowing the enemy weapons to pass through them harmlessly while maintaining their ability to fire back. It was a delicate balance that required split-second timing and computer systems that could calculate probability across multiple dimensions. Within 15 minutes, all 3 Void Hunter ships had been destroyed. The human fighters immediately began their cleanup protocol, using specialized equipment to collect any debris and neutralize the exotic energy signatures left by the battle. By the time they were finished, there would be no evidence that the engagement had ever occurred. Elena Vasquez watched, the stunned silence in the council chambers as the implications of what they had witnessed sank in. These beings who had dismissed humanity as primitive had just watched human pilots casually destroy enemies that had terrorized the galaxy for 50 years. The tactical sophistication displayed by the human fighters was beyond anything the Council's own military forces could achieve. Counselor Zethkar was the first to find his voice. The weapons ... the targeting systems. How long have you possessed such technology? The first generation of adaptive weapons was deployed 47 years ago, Elena replied. The systems you just observed represent our latest development cycle, incorporating improvements based on data from over 200 combat engagements. Ambassador Lyra's starlight form was pulsing with rapid color changes that indicated deep, emotional turmoil among her species. 200 engagements? You have fought the Void Hunters 200 times? Asterisk, 237 successful interventions, Elena confirmed. 43 unsuccessful encounters where we arrived too late to prevent planetary destruction. Total human casualties in these operations number approximately 52,000 personnel. The chamber fell silent again as council members processed the magnitude of humanity's secret war. For decades, they had debated how to respond to the Void Hunter threat while human forces had been quietly fighting and dying to protect their worlds. Marcus, Chun's voice came through the communication link. From Haven's Shield. Counselors, the engagement you just witnessed represents routine operations for our defensive network. We conduct similar missions every few days, intercepting Void Hunter forces before they can reach populated systems. He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. But operating in secret has limitations. We can only deploy limited forces. We cannot coordinate with local defenses, and we often arrive too late because we lack real-time intelligence from council systems. Full cooperation would allow us to save more lives. Asterisk Elena stepped forward. In the council chamber. My species has chosen to reveal our capabilities today because we believe the time for secrecy has passed. The Void Hunter threat is growing stronger, and they are beginning to adapt to our tactics. We need to work together if we want to protect the civilizations of this galaxy. She gestured to the display, which now showed all 6 hidden human installations and their areas of coverage. We are prepared to share our technology, coordinate our operations with council forces, and train your personnel in anti-Void Hunter tactics. But we need your intelligence networks, your resources, and your trust. Counselor Vrex's crystalline form chimed softly as he spoke. What you are proposing would revolutionize galactic defense. But it would also mean admitting that we have been dependent on a species we considered primitive. Elena smiled. Counselor, there is no shame in accepting help from allies. Humanity learned long ago that survival sometimes requires putting aside pride in favor of practical cooperation. We have been content to work in the shadows because the work itself was more important than receiving credit for it. She looked around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives from every major species. But now we face a choice. We can continue operating separately, with all the limitations that entails, or we can combine our strengths and finally push back against the darkness that threatens us all. Admiral Chun's image appeared on the main display beside Elena. The choice is yours, honored counselors. But I want you to understand what humanity is offering. We are prepared to share 73 years of research, tactical data from hundreds of battles, and technology that your scientists will find revolutionary. We ask only for cooperation and the chance to work together openly. The chamber filled with the sound of dozens of different species discussing the proposal in their native languages. Elena waited patiently, knowing that the decision they made today would determine the future of galactic civilization. Finally, Ambassador Lyra spoke for the Council. Commander Vasquez, Admiral Chun, on behalf of the Galactic Council, we accept humanity's offer of cooperation. We also formally apologize for our misconceptions about your species' capabilities and express our gratitude for the protection you have provided without recognition. Elena nodded graciously. No apology necessary, Ambassador. We are all here to protect the innocent and preserve civilization. Now let us work together to ensure that no world falls to the Void Hunters ever again. As the council session moved into detailed discussions of technology sharing and tactical coordination, Marcus Chun stood on the bridge of Haven's Shield, and felt a weight lift from his shoulders. For 7 decades, humanity had fought alone, in the darkness. Now, finally, they would have all eyes in the battle for the galaxy's survival.